Well, thank you, Iza, and thank you so much to both Anne and Liza for putting together this wonderful event here at the Alliance Center. I'm very excited to be here. As Iza said, my name is Maria Brinck, and I'm the founder of Zynergy Coaching, where I work as an executive coach and leadership consultant. I work with helping companies to really attract and retain and engage their employees, in particular the millennials, and also to develop future leaders within their organization. So important. And how do I do that? I focus on leadership, on purpose. Climate change, of course, being one of them, and also bringing purpose into the corporate culture and really everything they do. We need to have meaning in our businesses and what we do every day. So that's my true passion. And then I use StrengthsFinder. I'm a StrengthsFinder coach, where it's really about focus on the strengths in each one of us and how we can make this world a better place by working and collaborating together. So, but before I get into the presentation, I was kind of curious, how many millennials do we have here in the room? I think I see a few over there. Fantastic. This presentation is for you. I think you're gonna like it. So let me just see if I can figure out the technology here. Not that one. What about that? Okay, so the first question that I'm hoping that we're gonna address tonight is really, how is climate change affecting businesses and our business community? And number two is, how can we leverage climate change as a business opportunity? As we all know, with any crisis, there's always going to be opportunity. So let's take a look at those two, starting with the first question. So we could focus on the following, and I think actually in the panel later on, we are going to address some of these things, but these are all affecting business, and you see it with climate change. Of course, supply, distribution channel disruption, I think that's a no-brainer. Lack of potential investors and funding, increased insurance costs, I think we all are feeling those, even with our homeowners insurances. Energy cost and volatility. And of course, the importance of reporting your carbon footprint, because I bet your competitors are doing it right now. And transparency, by the way, is everything in today's business. But instead, I'm actually going to focus on something quite different. And here it is. Climate change is actually disrupting the entire business model, the way we know it. How many of you went to business school? Okay, quite a few. Probably about 50% of you. Well, I'm sure you all remember the good old 4 Ps of, let me see, product, price, promotion, place. We all remember those, right? Well, if you look at the future of business, look at that sweet spot and look what's on that slide. I would argue that we really need to get into purpose, people, planet, profit, and really the purpose, people, planet, really driving profit in business moving forward. And I'm going to show you the business case behind that. And thank you, millennials. Now, you all probably know Greta by now. Why should I go to school if there is no future, right? Well, she has a point, doesn't she? And let's face it, why should any one of us go to work if there's no future, if there's no meaning? I'm sure there are a few of us in this room right now asking yourself this question. I sure am. Interesting fact, by 2025, the American workforce will be made up of you guys, the millennials. And actually, I love this picture because that also shows something else interesting and something we really need to pay attention to in business, which I'm not going to get in too much into tonight, but they're very well connected globally and very much about transparency. So if you're in business and you're not doing what's right, you know, environmentally, socially, the world is going to know it, and they're going to know it quick. And you're probably not going to be in business for too much longer, would be my guess. So let's pay attention to that. And then 74% of millennials want a job where there is a purpose. Quite different from Generation X and the baby boomers, which we all thought making money was the thing to do. 8 out of 10 employees are currently disengaged at work, costing global companies about $7 trillion in lost productivity per year. Think about that number. That's pretty big. And of course, disengagement leads to less productivity, leads to less profit. You do the numbers. So in the time we're at right now, there's really a war on talent to attract, retain, and engage your employees, right? And obviously those are some of the issues I work with in organizations to really increase those numbers and attract and retain and engage their employees. But Patagonia, interestingly enough, has an average of 185 applicants per opening. I mean, that's unheard of. Look at their purpose. We're in business to save our home, our planet. We all should have a purpose like that. If we're in business, you need something very similar, whether on the environmental side of things or social side of things, or ideally both. And Patagonia is a very interesting example. The CEO, Rose Marcario, entered Patagonia in 2008 as the CFO. I believe she's been the CEO for about 5 years. And since she entered the business, they've increased the profitability 3 times over in a little bit over 10 years. Amazing. So there's something truly here. And if you look at Patagonia, obviously being a very responsible company, and look at this stat, 62% of millennials are willing to take a pay cut to work for a responsible company. A pay cut. So things are shifting. So I hope by that we answer the first question of how is climate change impacting the business community? It's pretty clear. The entire business model is changing, and very fast. Now the second question, how can we now leverage climate change as a business opportunity? I bet a few of you are here today to figure that one out. Well, let's take a look. Leadership. Leadership on climate change is going to become very, very important to our organizations. Actually, leadership is everything. Think about it. Everything rises and falls on the shoulders of leadership. That is your greatest differentiator in your organization and to create competitive advantage. So let's take a look at leadership. The new generation is hungry for leadership on climate change. 96% of millennials want to work for a socially responsible company, a really green-minded company. So let's take a look of how do you get there. Well, start asking your employees some questions. Get to know the millennials and Gen Z, by the way. Here's some good questions to start with. How do they feel about their strengths? What do they feel is what they bring to the company every day at their best? What do they care about? Looking for values, right? And what gives them reason to come to work every day? Are you asking your employees these questions? These are very important. So you have the strength, you have the value, you have the purpose within those 3 simple questions. And of course, listen. Listen to what they have to say. Now ask yourself some questions as well. And I'll tell you why, because your employees are either asking these questions right now or will be asking these questions very soon. So if you want to attract and retain and engage your employees, you better have an answer to these questions. Now, why does our company exist? That's a good starter. How are we making this world a better place? And if we're not, should we really be in business, right? Is purpose built into our company culture? Very important. And what is our carbon footprint? And you're thinking, what is our carbon footprint as a business? Well, guess what? Your competitors are showing their carbon footprint. There's transparency. And if you are trying to not put it out there, they're going to think you're hiding something. And of course, this is very much for public companies, but I tell you what, it's coming into the private business as well, and very quickly. And again, when there's a time of war on talent, you better have some answers on these questions. So action plan, what do you do with all of this? Well, you want to align the strengths of your employees and your company with those values and the purpose established by those questions earlier. And then, of course, with your strategic plan. And I'm going to give you a good example of how that works in an organization here in a second. And then, of course, you want to bring employee retention and engagement into the incentives of the company. And why not also align them to executive bonuses? You can use a tool like Q12 to look at engagement and see if you're moving the needles on engagement, for example, in companies. And then you can use, of course, Gallup StrengthsFinder. I'm sure a few of you, are you familiar with StrengthsFinder? A few of you? Great. As a way to identify the strengths of your employees and the strengths of your business, and then measure the leadership effectiveness. And my favorite tool for that is the Open 360. I've actually seen with Zynergy that we've been able to increase leadership effectiveness with about 24% over a 12-month period, focusing on the strengths of the employees and combining their strengths with values and purpose to really drive the strategic goals within their business. So this is powerful stuff. And also something else we see when we focus on strengths of their employees, of individuals, you actually see 3 times likely to report having an excellent quality of life and 6 times as likely to be engaged at their jobs. And as we know, engagement drives productivity, productivity drives profit. So you can see how it all works together. And 3 times as likely to report excellent quality of life. Think of what that means. That is probably the difference between you coming home after work, pretty burnt out, just want to check out, probably don't have the energy to interact with your family, your children, versus somebody actually coming home and excited to be home. You used your strengths throughout the day, you get to be engaged at home. When you come home, you actually do have energy. You get to hear about the 100,000 questions from your toddler and them wanting to interact with you, and you're happy to be there. I mean, that is really the difference. I mean, this is changing not only the workforce, but also life when you get home from work. So really, let's focus on people's strengths and how they're unique. So 4th is really going to be about hiring and firing, and look for talent and culture fit. So questions to ask here will really be, number 1, tell me who you are when you're at your best. And what you're looking for here is obviously their strength, their talent. And then another good question in this process would be, tell me about a time when you made a difference and what was the impact. And of course there you're looking for their, not only their values and strengths, but their true purpose and what they're looking for. And you can see if they're more about difference in their own lives or different other people's life, or are they about animals, the planet. Who knows what's going to come up? They're always good questions to ask. But don't take this from me. We're seeing a major shift, and look at that. The world's biggest investor are telling CEOs, purpose is the animating force for profit. There you have it. And this is Larry Fink. He's the CEO of BlackRock, asset manager of 6.5 trillion American dollars. This came out in January of this year. Things are changing, and they're changing very quickly. And you're probably asking I wanted to give you an example. Well, how do we tie purpose to our company, to our brand, for example? Well, here it is. Unilever has done an amazing job with the previous CEO, Paul Pullman, of doing this. They basically tied purpose to one of their soap. I think it's Lifebuoy, one of their brand soaps. And what they did is started a campaign in Mumbai, India, where they teach young children, school age, proper hand washing. They reached about 800,000 children to show them proper hand washing. They decreased diarrheal disease with about 25%, and respiratory illness, acute respiratory illness, with about 15%, and increased the rates of their school attendance in Mumbai with 40%, by tying purpose to their brand of soap, Lifebuoy. And of course, this is also increasing sales. I mean, remember that the strengths of the companies, align that with values and purpose, and then the overall strategy or strategic goals of the company, which very likely is going to be increased sales and value of a brand. And they were able to do that. And look at this is from their website just the other week. They are growing their brands that are attached to purpose with 69 times faster than the rest of their business. And they're showing right there, that's their proof. And now actually with their current president, Ellen Jope, they are planning on attaching purpose to everything, every brand, everything they do within Unilever. So pretty remarkable. So the majority of millennials do not support capitalism. I think we can also see that in these previous slides. And there's truly a need for conscious leadership in business. The new generation really do get it. And so does Gen Z, by the way, right behind them. So change is coming, and it's coming extremely fast. So it's really about lead, follow, or get out of the way. Now, 50 years ago, this year, we learned to walk on the moon. But we have not yet learned how to walk on planet Earth. This is our story. Do we want it to end here? I ask all of you, we can all be leaders. Please embrace purpose in everything you do, in life, at work, as leader of our organizations, because we need it. And be the leader our future needs. And we need it now. We're running out of time. We really are. Thank you so much. What questions do you have? Hopefully it was thorough enough to put everything. Yeah.
I thought you were going to mention the Business Roundtable. Remember recently?
Okay.
The Business Roundtable announced that that profit for the shareholders should not be the primary focus of a corporation.
Yes. Thank you. Just adding to it, right? Yes, stunning. So they're now looking at, profit for all the stakeholders, which is going to be what we just saw there. The employees, the customers, planet, animals, everything. I mean, we're all in this together. So gotta love that. There were some interesting names on that roundtable. I really wonder how they're gonna bring that out to their business and what their plan is gonna be. So I think we still need to wait and see what the true actions are gonna be. I mean, we can talk about it, but until we see some true action, and I can't wait to see the results. But it's a good start. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Yes.
The problem with climate change has been known for a long time, 70s, 80s. And so why all of a sudden is corporate America waking up? I mean, they should have known.
Great question.
They think long term on profits and marketing and that sort of thing. So why all of a sudden are they waking up and saying, oh, we've got a problem?
Because the millennials, the new generation is demanding it. That's it.
It's just one population segment that's driving this whole thing?
Yeah, well, I have most data and done most research around the millennials, but the reality is, I mean, look at this room. There's not just millennials here. I'm not a millennial, and I'm, as you can tell, extremely passionate. So it's coming, and it's coming fast. And, the public is waking up, and we're starting to demand it. Public opinion is very, very powerful. So you're finally seeing a shift. Yes?
Do you know if these trends are the same globally for millennials in developing countries and economies?
Yeah, I mean, my research is mostly done here in the United States, but I would actually say because climate change, there's really no deniers, only United States, to be honest, sad to say. So I would assume that this is going to be as strong anywhere else as it is here.
I can at least confirm for France, for in Europe, for sure in Western Europe.
Same in Ecuador.
Same
Mhm.
in Israel.
Same in Sweden.
Mainly as the primary developing economies that are, fast tracking to industrialization.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Things are changing. It's definitely a shift out there. So very good one for all of us. Yes?
Thank you, Maria. That was a great
Welcome.
presentation.
Thank you.
I noticed that the talk was about employees and employee retention, and I recognize how much that contributes to the bottom line. But I'm wondering how you sell this message to somebody like Lord & Taylor versus Patagonia. Actually, Lord & Taylor's a retailer, so let's say Michael Kors, someone who's in the fashion industry. How do you convince somebody whose business is product focused and the product is very carbon intensive and has an enormous pollution footprint?
Sure.
How do you take the Patagonia model and sell it to the Michael Kors brand?
So also in fashion, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really about, there's so many different ways you can approach this. For them, it could be the material that make their clothing, right? So how can then recycle, make sure it doesn't end up in the landfill. People can customers can take back the clothing to the store to then exchange it for other clothing. I mean, we have to think bigger. We need to think about how do we produce no waste, really. And Laura can speak to that. I'm not the expert on that, but that's really, we need to change mindset across businesses all over in every single way, not just on the employee engagement side of things, which just happens to drive this great movement, but on every single thing. And then, of course, they can do renewable energy like everybody else, right? They can look at their supply chain distribution channels and make sure that's carbon neutral. They can report their carbon footprint. There's so many things they can do to make it attractive for us as consumers and for their employees as well.
Speaking of that, I
And
run
cutting
a service
costs.
business, so I'm not familiar with CDP. When you
Yeah,
say
what was
report
CDP?
your carbon footprint to CDP.
Oh, CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Project.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
is
a
that some UN
yeah.
related?
No, it was started. Maybe somebody knows more about it than I do. But my understanding, they started in England about 10 years ago, and they've done a tremendous job in basically putting indexes together, comparing companies to companies on the carbon footprint. So what's interesting now is that the millennials and most of us want transparency from business and really want to know, you know, if I'm interviewing, comparing IBM to Intel and I'm choosing where to put my career, I might want to know those two companies' different carbon footprint, because that is all of a sudden my greatest investment and greatest impact I can have on climate change.
Okay,
Right,
sorry,
so,
No, I apologize.
so.
I think I don't want to run late, but we're going to pursue. We still are going to have another time for questions at the end, so please we can pursue this one session later.
But all good questions. Thank you so much.
Okay.